Hello everyone and welcome back. This is Fish Sandwich Patrol bringing you another Total War battle. I got a special one for you today. As you can see over there in the blue, I got my good friend Indy Pride. Say hi, Indy Pride.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, so we're doing a 2v2 here. We dropped open the battle list and we're going against two Fall of the Samurai armies with Shogun Total War armies. So I'm going to go over my setup really quickly before we go over to Indy Pride, check out his. So I have a little bit of a different army. I don't have any bows this time. I brought 3 matchlocks, 2 samurai and an ashigaru, and then I have a mixed sword core of 3 katanas and 2 nodachis, all fresh. And then I have 2 Yari Samurai and a small complement of Yari Cavalry. So not the best time to go against the Fall of the Samurai, but I'm going to work with it. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention these guys right here, the fire rockets. They're an old standby that I haven't used in a long time, so I had to bust them out for this one. So we'll go over here to the blue and check out Indy Pride's army now.
Yeah, fire rockets are one of my favorite units in Shogun 2. They're so much fun to use. But I am rocking a bow core over on my side. 3 200 range bows, 2 bow monks, and 1 Daikyu samurai. There's a bunch of different tactics you can use when you go up against a Apollo samurai army, and I'm going to go for outranging my opponent. So there is an Armstrong gun across the river from me. I do have to be worried about that. If he targets down my bows, that could definitely be a problem. But I have some seriously good bow units up on my side. The 200 range is going to really help out because all of his line infantry, the best that he has is 150 range. So I'm going to be able to outskirmish it and just do some kiting and shoot his line infantry to death, and we'll see what happens.
Alright, so going back over here, I just want to mention real quick that my army is actually really bad for Fall of the Samurai, and I wasn't thinking about it when I was setting it up, but I have really nothing to contest a Fall of the Samurai army with. I have not many I just don't have any meat shields. I really don't. I usually like to use Yari Samurai in that role, but I only have 2 of them. I have some fresh swords. It's really not great for me, but I do have this bow cavalry and this fire rocket to maybe try and mix things up a little bit. But unfortunately, I have this big hill right in the middle and this river going through the middle, which is going to make it difficult for me to close the gap. So I'm going to take it very slowly in the beginning part of the battle. I hardly do anything, just try and skirmish my bow cavalry, which I'm terrible at. So we'll go over to India Pride where some action's starting here.
Yeah, I got a nice little shot off on the Red Bear infantry, and the balance between Fall of the Samurai and Shogun 2 is actually really good, and I don't think CA meant it to be as good as it is, but there's actually a bunch of tactics available to both factions, whether you're going Fall of the Samurai or Shogun 2. There's a bunch of stuff you can do. You can go full rush army with no dachis and the unbreakable morale from Banzai and that kind of stuff, or you can go for a skirmish build like I did. So it's really interesting here. On Hokuriku Crossing, I felt like the outranging them with the 200 range bows would be the right call here, and I have to be really careful because he does have stuff that can quickly decimate my bows. He has the Armstrong guns. If he targets down my bows, they'll die very quickly, or if he gets in range and I don't micro appropriately, he could get a really good shot off of my bows, and they'll lose half of their men to one volley from a Red Bear or a Tosa Rifleman. But for now, just moving up, making sure that I'm at my maximum range and doing quite a bit of damage to some of his line infantry, actually.
So like I said, I'm taking it pretty slow over here on this side. I'm trying to do some skirmish with my bow cavalry, but it's not working. They're not really even firing for me for some reason. I was getting really frustrated in the chat for trying to skirmish these bows. Now, he has an interesting setup on this side. He's also red like me, which made it pretty confusing. But he has a lot of bows. He's got 3 bokachi up here. 3 bokachi up here in the front, and then he's got some white tigers right behind them, along with some spears and katanas. So it's a very mixed force, which was actually really interesting to play against. Now over here on this side of the river, I'm just setting up in a defensive posture because he doesn't have any like cannons or anything that I have to worry about. And I'm trying to maybe lure something into range of my matchlocks, but it's going to be slow going for me with this river, and he's going to be able to back up and kite me pretty well because I don't have any bows, and my matchlocks range are only 100, and his are going to be 150. So I actually don't really have anything to approach this army with, but I will have to close that distance. So it's going to be very difficult. And I'm just taking it real slow. I'm actually really seeing what's going on in Indy's Pride's side of the river before I really make any moves.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna. I have no intention of crossing the river anytime soon. With my bows, there's really no point. I do have some good melee troops. I have 2 nodachis and a Yari Samurai, 2 Yari Samurai. One of them has hold firm actually. So if I get some morale problems, which you can definitely have with melee generals, neither of us have melee generals actually, which are definitely the most ideal kind of general you want to have versus Fall of the Samurai, because when you're running into withering gunfire, of course, you'd like to have a bunch of morale bonuses, but we both have melee gens, which means that hold firm could definitely come into handy, and I have the Banzai on my nodachis, which means if I'm getting shot to pieces and my guys are wavering, pop Banzai, get that unbreakable morale, and they'll be able to stay in the fight and maybe stabilize, get a rear charge off. The thing about fighting against Fall of Samurai is you're always going to be in trouble until you get into melee combat. Once you get in there, you can start routing line infantry and your guys will usually stabilize. So it's just if you can get in there into combat intact, basically, and that's not always the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, it definitely isn't if you're not careful. Using the terrain to your advantage is pretty important, and luckily for me, I do have this hill right here in the front, which I was going to try to exploit, but it's going to be slow going getting across the river and closing the distance. So you can see me starting to shift a little bit. I'm putting my matchlocks right up on the river and maybe try and lure his cavalry and maybe through a micro mistake into range of that matchlocks and take some of his cavalry off the field, because he doesn't have very many. He's only got 2 units besides his general, so I'm not too worried about his cavalry, and really, I'm just trying to close the distance, and he senses that he's pulling back into a more defensive posture as well, and getting in there with his ally way back across the second river way here in the south. So that's my cue to move across the river. I'm sending my cavalry over way far in the east to try and start to do some flanking action and decide how I'm going to start crossing this river and crack this nut. But it's pretty slow going here on this side still. My bow cavalry are still in good health at 72 out of 80, but have hardly killed anybody because my skirmishing is just terrible, I guess. I'm really bad at it. That's why I don't do it. That's why I don't do it.
It would have been really nice to have him just move up so you could like spring an ambush with the fire rockets. That's the most fun thing. When you got them hidden in the woods, you just wait till they move up and just spring like a devastating volley into a blob of infantry units or cav or something. Super satisfying, but it's not going to happen. He's going to pull back. He's playing pretty smart, actually, very defensive with his build. I think that's how his build is set up. He doesn't want to be getting super aggressive with what he has so far. Over on my side, my opponent has made some mistakes. He's been using his Armstrong guns to shoot my Yari Ashigaru, which is really not smart. They're meat shields. It's what they're meant for. If he'd been targeting my bows, I probably would have already lost an entire bow unit by now. But you can see, look at the kills on my bows right now. There's 126 on one bow monk, 113 on another bow monk, and 60 on the other one. So a lot of those kills are on range units like the Red Bears. This one's at half strength. Some of them are down very substantially. But he's still targeting my Yara Ashigaru with his Armstrong gun, which is really not what he should be doing.
So over here on my side, we actually got some action. I found some 2 hidden matchlock Hachis here in the trees, and my cavalry is going to be able to get them off the field. So that's 2 matchlock units gone, which is really nice against any Follow Samurai army. His cavalry tries to relieve the matchlock Hachi, but I managed to overpower him here in the woods, and he runs off and decides that, well, the matchlocks are basically gone, so I'm not going to try risking my cav against that melee general. So again, taking it slow, my army's starting to move across the river now. I'm going to use this hill and just be really careful how I approach, because unfortunately, I have no trees, and the hills aren't really favorable for me on this side of the field. So like Any Pride said, it's good to get those ambushes with the fire rockets, but it becomes apparent very soon that I'm not going to be able to get an ambush off. Now, I still haven't shown them yet. He doesn't know I have them, but they're going to have to move across the field, and he's going to know they're coming. So that's going to make it very difficult for them to use, because again, a lot of the power of the fire rockets come from the ambush. And I'm just cleaning up these Kachis, making sure they shatter, because they hadn't fully shattered yet and don't want them coming back on the field. So that ambush unit down, that's very good, and I'm going to start feeling a little more confident to start moving up now. And we got some wavering here on the other side of the river. We're going to go over and check out Enterprise side.
Yeah, the Red Bears are down to 67 men out of 200, and when the Yarikachi turn their back, that's a perfect time to get some shots from the Daikyu. Daikyu are the best bows in the game when they're upgraded. They have similar power to the Bow Monk's bows, but they have more men in a unit. They shoot a little bit slower, but that's kind of irrelevant, especially in a battle like this. My opponent actually used a Cold Snap against me, which is going to lower my reload skill by 10 all across the board, but it doesn't really matter because you don't need fast reload skill if you're kiting appropriately versus Follow Samurai. They're not going to get in range of shooting you if you kite the way you should. So how fast they're shooting is kind of irrelevant. In fact, it kind of is like having a less itchy trigger finger. It kind of regulates how fast you're shooting, and so it's kind of benefiting me in some ways. But you can see I'm just shredding those Yarikachi, shredding a bunch of his line infantry, and he's not having a good time. He's going to have to move back to the forest very soon, and that's when I'll probably swing my attack.
So yes, they are playing very defensively. That's kind of what you want to do when you have a whole lot of ranged units and you're depending on mowing them down before they close the distance. But we're slowly tightening this vice. We have an advantage in numbers. I think Pride's been shredding through the enemy units. I've already routed 2 matchlock Kachi, so things are looking pretty good. I haven't lost any units. Just my bow cavalry's taken a few hits. But you see my fire rockets are moving up, and those are going to be key to my attack because they're going to sort of cover my units and start jarring the enemy lines with some long-range fire. And he's moving back behind this second river again, moving closer to that red line, just not having a lot of space to really do their thing because with the range advantage that at least Indie Pride has, we sort of have a lot of initiative here. So they're forced into that defensive posture. Now I unfortunately don't have the range that he does. But once I can get into range to set up those matchlocks, I'm going to be able to just wreak havoc with these swords. Now, the matchlocks are going to try and get in position. That's why I like Yari Samurai, and I'm going to try and use them in this battle in this way to close the distance because you can use that speed bonus to really close that gap fast. And I like to upgrade the speed on the veteran bonus on the Yaris too, so it makes it very, very good for closing the distance. And they're a little more expensive than the traditional meat shields like the Yari Ashigaru, but I feel that they can be very, very effective in the right hands.
Yeah, they definitely can be. And I do want to talk a little bit about Orange's deployment right here. He has a couple of issues going on with the way he's deployed his troops. The biggest problem is that he, first off, isn't spread out with his White Tigers. And you really need, with any of your line infantry, you need to be spread out all the way because that makes the maximum number of guys shooting with their rifles. You want to have them completely spread out. But he also doesn't really have double lines going on. In like maybe one place he has White Tigers hidden behind his Bokachi, but you really want to get overlapping fields of fire and double line fire going. That's the easiest way to shut down a rush army from Shogun 2 is get that double line fire going, shoot with the first line, and then as the opponent rushes you, you pull back with that first line and shoot with the second line and kind of cycle it. Now he has some katanas and other stuff that he can throw into melee, but the build that he's brought, these Katana Kachi are not going to be able to stand up to Shogun's, or to Fishy's veteran Katana Samurai, or Yari Samurai for that matter.
No, absolutely not. So I'm starting to move into position here. The matchlocks are going out front because I have a nice little terrain advantage with this hill. It's hard for him to shoot into my ranks pretty well, and I got a nice downhill field of fire. So things are looking pretty good for me. This is my time to attack, and my units should start moving up. Now, my micro is pretty rusty from 3 years of not playing any Total War.
Yes, it is.
But look at, oh yeah, you should see some of the battles we played tonight. It was really bad. But these Bokachi are going to take a nice direct volley and start taking some serious casualties. These matchlock samurai, so as you can see, that volley, wasn't the best. It takes about 20 men down, but I'm going to have a nice little counter volley into the White Tiger force and get it, rip them apart, kill 30 with that volley. So the matchlocks are getting in position, and my infantry is now starting to close the gap. The Yari Samurai have activated their speed boost ability. Now, as you can see, all my Yari Samurai and all my cavalry are here on the strong side where all of his cavalry is. So I'm going to be pretty safe closing the gap with those Yari Samurai because I know they'll be nearby when his cavalry tries to close the distance. So already starting to route his frontline units with a Banzai charge going off from the Nodachis, and we're going to rip right through this first line and go straight for the bows. So Orange is in a very precarious position right here. As we look over here to Indy Pride's side, still not a whole lot going on, so I'll still focus on this side a little bit. And the matchlocks are just, on my side, are just tearing into him. He has no field of fire at this point, so the terrain advantage is very much on my side. A little bit of a micro mistake here, not moving my spears there, and they're going to take the charge. But I'm spread out in a nice wide posture. You see these wide spread units are just trying to cover and deny as much ground as he can as the cavalry tries to go through the side. But they're going to get caught up on my Yari cavalry that was spread out, and this other Yari cavalry is going to start flanking maneuvers right now.
Check out the revolver cav on Orange's left flank. That's doing a lot of damage, actually. I got 76 kills in a couple of seconds. Obliterated one of your Nodachi Samurai. And I'm going to try to overlap with my Naginata Warrior Monk cav. I'm sending that in now. Going to try to juke around the Spear Levy and get into that revolver cav. But he actually does have double line fire here. Is the White Tiger force in the front, and then the White Tiger force in the back, and then there's the revolver cav as well. So I'm going to get a good charge into the White Tiger force, and you're going to want to catch this because he's going to turn his revolver cav to shoot at my Naginata Warrior Monk cav, and they're going to just get completely obliterated by that revolver cav in a couple of seconds, I believe. I think he's going to turn around now. The thing about revolver cav, they don't have very much ammo, but they have extremely fast rate of fire.
Oh, got to interrupt you here because my fire rockets have just made their first attack on the enemy general, killed 10 men and put him into disarray. You can see his line starting to waver, and oh yeah, that revolver cavalry just absolutely mowing down these warrior monks.
Yeah, they're going to die real fast. The entire unit is gone now. They got 113 kills in a very short amount of time, but they are going to rout. And at that point, I realized I can move up my bows. Now, this is a micro mistake. I had my bow monks that were trying to target one of his units, and I moved them up, and I didn't notice it, actually. So he's going to do the smart thing here, send his revolver cav into melee against my bow monks, and I'm probably going to lose the majority of this unit here to a bad micro mistake here. And I'm kind of rusty on Shogun 2, honestly, also. I've been playing plenty of Attila and Rome 2, but Shogun 2 I have not played much, so I definitely have some micro lapses as well there. But Orange is in disarray, and Fishy's doing quite a good job with him.
And the fire rockets go and just crushes enemy general. Luckily, I don't kill my own in the process.
Yeah, you shot the crap out of your own.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mistake there. I probably shouldn't have done that, but the battle's pretty much over on this side. His units are all wavering en masse, so my units have closed the distance, and we've managed to pin him down, and now brownish red, or whatever you want to call it, is trying to make his last stand as Orange is going to get off the field, and I'm trying to clean up everything I can to go help out my friend.
Yeah, he's going to pull through his revolver cav, try to get at my Daikyu Samurai, run across the river. He is going to do that successfully, but the revolver cav honestly have really crap melee stats. They're going to do a little bit of damage to Daikyu Samurai, but I'm just going to turn my bow monks, and they're going to get absolutely eviscerated by range fire in a couple of seconds here. Revolver cav are not going to be able to stay in melee for very long. You can see that front line of Yarikachi and some of the range units have already routed, and I've gotten my Yari Ashigaru and my Nodachis and Yari Samurai safely into the woods, which means I'm really tightening that vice on Brown, and pretty soon here I'm going to get my guys into melee, and that is not where Follow Samurai wants to be. He can't kite across the river because my cab is waiting on the other side of the river, so he's kind of stuck where he is right now, honestly.
So a very precarious situation here for Brown, but his allies cleaned up off the field, so things looking very grim for him. He's got a position here on top of the hill in the trees, which is going to help him out, but he's just going to be wavering too much at this point. I'm sending my fire rockets over to try and get some shots off on whatever units I can on this side of the field. Last stand here from Red is going to send some shots right into my samurai. It ends up routing a couple units, but here come the fire rockets. See, they instantly start wavering, and bam! This unit gets torn apart. 40 people at least killed in that volley, and they're just going to shatter, and they are gone. So Red is officially off the field. There it goes. Last unit has shattered.
Yeah, fire rockets themselves aren't amazing versus infantry. They're really good for a morale effect on top of an engagement that you're already winning. They're not going to kill a bunch of infantry. They're really ideal for killing cav. They will obliterate cav units. I don't know why that is. It's like a bonus versus large or some hidden thing in the stats, but they only have 65 kills, but they did make a big impact. They routed a bunch of the orange units, and while all of that happened, my 4 melee units did manage to get into the line infantry of Brown, and we managed to kill pretty much everything and take the field.
So it's being a game. That was actually my first victory against Fall of the Samurai Army. I'd only seen him a couple times before I took a hiatus, so that was a good little victory for me in Indie Pride. So it was precarious there for me because when we started the battle, Indie Pride was talking to me after the last battle, and I'd used some bow samurai, and he said, you know, bows really aren't that good. You should try using more matchlocks. So I was like, all right, I'm not gonna bring any bows. I'm gonna bring matchlocks. And then we loaded into the battle, and I was like, wait, these guys are Fall of the Samurai. These matchlocks are gonna be nearly useless. But they ended up doing pretty well, as I got a nice terrain advantage on my side of the field.
Yeah, it's not so much. Matchlocks can work just as meat shields. I mean, if you're bringing matchlock Ashigaru, they're going to soak up some fire. That's basically what Yari Ashigaru do anyway. So they're not going to get a bunch of kills, but you're spending 450 to soak up a bunch of the range fire. It's really not that bad. If your opponent had more line infantry, and he was a lower level, so of course he wasn't going to have a lot of line infantry, but he had matchlocks, so it made it more balanced. Yari Ashigaru and Naginata attendants are definitely the best meat shields you can bring against a Fall of Samurai army. That's really the ideal thing.
Yeah, it definitely is. So I ended up actually using them quite well. My matchlocks got about almost 300 kills between the 3 units, so still ended up being very effective. The Tempest rockets only got 65, but big morale effects, and hitting him right into their general made him just shatter and leave the field. So still very effective. My Yari's got a lot of kills. Just a pretty good battle there. I was quite satisfied with how I played in that one. Not the best micro, but my strategy I thought was pretty sound.
So take a look at the kills here. I had 328 kills on 1 bow warrior monk, 0 losses, 296 and 230 on my other 2 bows, so they did quite a bit of damage. Obviously when the Nodachis and Yari Samurai got into melee, they did quite a bit as well. Jen didn't do a whole lot, 91 kills, 14 losses, that's okay. But Revolver Cav for In Servitude Hominem did a lot, 270 kills, that's quite good. But you want to go over yours and the other players?
Yeah, let me take a look here. So kills, actually a lot of my kills came from my Yaris, which ended up pretty much obliterating his cav. Putting both my Yari Samurai on that strong side with all the cav ended up really working out for me. I spread those Yari cavalry out as wide as they would go to try and just be a net to catch them, and my Yari Samurai could just close the distance and hunt them down. So lots of kills there, and my cavalry didn't do so bad as well. 212 kills in that Yari cavalry, so fighting in the river ended up working pretty well. I want to point out this one real quick. This Nodachi Samurai, 347 kills. Woo. Good lord, they got a big charge right into a big clump of units right early on, so that really helps inflate the numbers.
Yep, Nodachis are the best, in my opinion, the best unit to bring against Fall of Samurai if you plan on rushing. Just that Bonsai is so invaluable, it's really, really helpful. But Yari Samurai are one of those interesting units that can actually do really well as well. I think they're good versus Fall of Samurai. The rapid advance, as Fishy mentioned already, is really good for closing the gap and killing line infantry. And you don't need amazing melee stats to kill line units. You just need to get in a melee, and so rapid advance is also invaluable in that situation as well. But we played pretty well there. I think that was an enjoyable battle. Anything else you want to say?
I think that's all. Any last words?
I'm good now.
All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Good luck on the battlefield.
Yes.